Hey guys, hello and welcome back to the Novice Lumberjack, where if you watch the channel, you know that I've got several Husky 55s at this point, but I have the first one that I started out with. I purchased this. I bought it with a fried cylinder, and so I swung for the fences and I got the closed port 46 millimeter setup made by Hyway. And this is it right here. I ported it. This was the very first port job that I ever did. Speaking of which, pull out my little book and you'll see that on the very first page, Husqvarna 55. Now everything's backwards because I got the phone swapped. But I went through all kinds of different variations trying to get this thing to perform. I thought that I had it performing good because I had never ran a 55 before. I threw a 24-inch bar on it, and I was really happy that it pulled it. Turns out, after the years go on, it was performing. I made this muffler for it, all right? And I was like, oh yeah, wow. Well, it turns out that it was performing extremely similar to a completely stock 55 with the open port cylinder, non-modified muffler, and everything. I think in one of the tests, the stock one even beat it, and so it became this thing where I was like, well, what's causing this? So I knew that I didn't have the ability back then to mess with the transfer port. So I went back and I cut the transfer ports, and yeah, and I put in an 028 piston, which I have this. We're going to break this down. We're going to break down the problems of why I could never get this cylinder, this Hyway closed port setup, to work. So I went back. The exhaust is opening at, oh, wait a minute. Originally, the exhaust opened at about 99 degrees, which is too high for only a 32 millimeter stroke, but it should still run well, right? The intake duration was 150 degrees. So, which is fine, you know. But what I decided, I'm going to try and run this steel 028 pop-up. It's an 028 super piston, right? Because, well, these are known to, people put them in the Chinese clone cylinders, and they think that they get a performance boost. Maybe they do. I don't know. But my big thing was it was a windowed piston, because the piston that came with my kit was closed. It was a non-windowed piston. It was the same piston that you'd buy for the open port cylinders. So I thought, well, okay, got the windows on this. That may be what's holding this all back. Same exact situation. It still was only performing the same as a stock cylinder. What is going on? The transfers I have, so I raised the transfers, and with the 028 piston, my intake was 84.5, my exhaust was 103.4, and the transfers opened 20 degrees later. So this is really going to work, and it just didn't. So now I have purchased another piston. This is the piston that I was supposed to have gotten with the Hyway closed port cylinder. And you'll notice that it is a single ring, whereas the steel was a dual ring, right? And it has the windows in it. And throughout this month, you're going to see me running the gamut on all the different possibilities of piston and cylinder setups for a Husqvarna 55. All right. So this is a Little Red Barn piston for the 45 millimeter actual factory closed port that's extremely rare that you could get on a Husky 55. It's very rare, very rare, very, very, very rare for this to have happened, but it did happen in some cases. And so this is a Little Red Barn piston. It has the pop-up on it, right? And maybe I'll try this, maybe I won't try this on my actual 55 closed port cylinder, which is right here. Now, the way they went about their closed port is the way that most things back in the day did, right? It was fed completely through the side and through the ported piston, right? You had to have those, or the windowed piston. You had to have those windows in order to be able to feed your transfers. So, the Hyway 46 millimeter, the Little Red Barn 45 millimeter. If you look at them, the only difference, there is a slight difference in height on the Hyway piston. There is a very slight difference in height on it, right? But the windows are spot on right there. So now let's look at what I think I've found, why the 028 windowed piston did not do justice. Look at all the difference there. That's a huge difference in the amount of time that the windows on the Hyway that is made for this cylinder are giving access to your transfers. So I measured, and with the 028 piston in place, I only had about 6.8 millimeters of distance in which the top transfers would be open. Well, it also has a higher top on it as well. So not only are the windows much larger in the Hyway setup, they're also, the top is not as tall. So those two things combined should increase the flow through the transfers immensely, like major, big time over the 028. And so by slapping this in that cylinder, we should have the answer to why that cylinder was underperforming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this in real quick. I'm going to check the squish. I am certain that I'll have to go back and cut the base on this because the squish is probably not going to be what I desire, because I'm wanting this to be a hot little runner. And shouldn't have to do anything other than that. The skirt on these is also longer than the skirt on the 024. So I'm hoping that my intake is going to fall around 80 degrees of duration, because between, well, what it was originally with the non-windowed piston, which should be the same skirt length as this, I had 75 degrees on my intake duration. Well, I am probably going to drop this significantly in order to fix my squish, and that's going to do two things for me. That is going to raise my exhaust number, lower the roof, right? I said it was about 99, so this should get us hopefully to 102, 103, somewhere around in there. And it'll also increase from the 150 duration of the intake, it should increase that up to 158 or something like that. So I'm going to go get the cutting, measuring, and all that stuff, and I'll get my new timing numbers with the appropriate piston, and hopefully we're going to get our numbers will just fall right where they should be, and ultimately I'm going to have a really good running kick butt Husqvarna 55. So catch you in a bit. Oh, before this cylinder, this is the Hyway again, right? This should work like magic, right? If I get all the numbers right, because look at that squish. Look at that tiny little pocket. Now, I have not touched the squish on this. This is what it came to me as from Hyway. This is a stock open port, and look at the difference of that combustion chamber. Look how tiny it is on this one here compared to this right here. So I really want this cylinder to work. So I'm going to try, and I'll get back to you. Okay, so I have it right here. I have the base cut on it. And I checked everything because I didn't know if I was going to have to hit the ports anymore. But here we have it. Here's the numbers. We got 22 thousandths squish. I failed to mention that without the base gasket and without the base cut, I had 47 thousandths squish. That's without a base gasket. So this Hyway cylinder, it seems like because of that really small combustion chamber, maybe they took it into consideration that they didn't want that much compression for the general user. And so in order to really take advantage of that squish that they have in there, you have to cut that base. I don't know if they were thinking about it that much, or if generally these Hyway cylinders for the 55 actually have that much squish. I don't know. But either way, that was a lot, because with the base gasket in place, then you're talking about 60,000 squish, maybe more. And so anyways, we'll see how this plays out. Which, with that little teeny tiny combustion chamber, should produce really strong compression. The intake is at 78.2. That's nice. That's it's not outrageous, and it's definitely in a safe zone, I believe. I was hoping for 80, but I'm going to leave it right there, see how she runs. Exhaust, 102.7. So we're right at the 103 mark, which should be good. Might be better if it was at 105. We'll see. But let's see. And then the transfers open up at 121, which gives me about 18 to 19 degrees of blowdown. So we're going to put this thing back together, and it's currently raining outside, so I won't be able to show you anything on that today. But I think at this point it should be a good, strong runner. I at least hope that it will. That's been the goal with this all along. I will probably keep my pipe muffler. It's the first one they ever made. And, we'll see how she runs. And hopefully it's really good, and hopefully it also answers all of the questions of why this thing was not performing like it should have. Even though the ported numbers weren't the best to begin with, it should have had considerable gains over stock, and it just wasn't. It absolutely would not cut. It would not pull RPM in the cut. It would not pull RPM, period. It just wasn't. Those windows in the piston, I think, just weren't big enough. And then before that, there was no windows. So here we go. We're testing, and hopefully this is going to work out.